All right. Tim Goff here, host of the My Ground Force webinar series, How to Focus on Profitability and Increase Your ROI. We've had several sessions now where we've talked about a number of things that you can do to help improve your profitability in your company. We know it's harder to be successful financially these days in the FedEx world. So we're bringing to you a whole series of topics that you can learn from and hopefully improve some elements of your business so that you can increase your ROI. Today, we're going to talk about tires. And when you look at the expenses in your business, the number one expense is capital. The number two expense is labor, of course. Number three is fuel. And number four is maintenance. But the biggest element of maintenance is tires. Whether it's the purchase of tires or reacting to tire issues, it drives a huge amount of cost in your business. And the more you know about tires and the more effective you are at establishing a program to manage tires in your business, then the more profitable you're going to be. And you're going to learn some things today, some easy levers that you can pull that will add tremendous value and lower your cost to operate the tires in this business. Tires have more than doubled in price since the start of COVID, and they're not going to go backwards in price. So we got to learn how to extend the life of tires and purchase them in a cost-effective way. We have a tire expert we're going to talk with today. Kelly Schnorr is a national sales manager for Southern Tire Mart. Southern Tire Mart is a huge provider of tires across a huge number of states in the country, and then purchased the Pilot Flying J maintenance program or facilities from Pilot Flying J truck stop chain. So now they have an even larger footprint. We're going to take a look at that footprint today as part of this presentation so you can see where they are. They have a great relationship with FedEx, and we get some pretty substantial discounts through the program with Southern Tire Mart. When I started as a contractor, I didn't know a whole lot about truck tires, but I knew I needed a tire program. And so I talked to a lot of people, and I talked to FedEx, and I reached out to Southern Tire Mart. Fortunately for me, in Birmingham, Southern Tire Mart has a substantial operation there, including a retread facility. And what I was able to work out with Southern Tire Mart is fixed pricing with a virtual inventory. And Kelly will talk about that today. So that meant that anywhere across the 9 domiciles that I operated, I had essentially pre-purchased tires that were available there in the case of an incident. They certainly have a very competent after-hours program if you need roadside assistance. And I essentially outsourced my entire tire management program to Southern Tire Mart, and so many other contractors. So that gives you an exact program on how you manage tires, what tires you're going to get, how you manage casings, all these kinds of things. We're going to talk about those today, but I just wanted you to know that the program that Southern Tire Mart has, I use to great success. So I encourage you guys to listen up today and learn some things from Kelly on tires, and maybe reconsider how you might improve how you manage tires to improve your profitability. Along the way, we'll shoot out some poll questions, though for some reason this system shot them out already. But at any rate, we appreciate you guys attending today, and I'll turn the floor over to Kelly. Just so you know, Kelly is going to give away a $750 gift certificate today that essentially gives you a discount on a range of services or tires or whatever might be going on. So at any rate, Kelly, you have the floor. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate the chance to get to know Kelly over the course of time, and you're going to see he's a tire expert. Take it away, Kelly.
Well, thank you, Tim. Sorry for my voice. I had activities this weekend where I lost it, so it's slowly but surely coming back. So, Tim, kind of hit the nail on the head when he said that tires is one of your most expensive in your business. So when you look at it, one of the things that I have learned over the last 30 years is it's not necessarily the price that you pay for the tire as much as it is the cost of the tire. So depending upon whether you're buying a new tire, a new Yokohama, Bridgestone, Michelin, Firestone, or one of the Chinese imports, it will vary what you get out of it in a cost per mile or a longevity. So one of the things, just going through the basic function of the tire, some of the items that is sometimes the hardest to implement, but the most rewarding or profitable is your pre-check inspection or pre-trip, having the drivers walk around. Some companies make them turn in a form, send a picture, uh, because the air pressure and any cuts or snags or any road debris uh, will allow you to fix it there as opposed to having a blowout or a breakdown between where you started and where you're going to end up. What's the best way for me to fast forward these, Tim? So the four basic functions of a tire. Next. Obviously, they're going to absorb the road and the shocks, changes and maintains direction of the travel. So that's one of the misconceptions as well is, the steer tires tend to get all of their wear from left to right because they're basically making the vehicle go down the road straight. So if you'll see wear on one side, if it's smooth in or rough out, if they're the same on both tires, it's an alignment issue. Uh, and it's not always the alignment in the steers as it could be in the drive axles as well. So when you start talking about the drive tires, all of their forces are front to back, obviously for traction to stopping. But like I was saying, the alignment being off could cause the steer tires to wear out faster or more. So as far as the different functions of the tire, what carries the load, and what component of the tire assembly actually supports the truck. The tread, the sidewalls. If you go ahead, Tim. It's the air that's in the tire. So the air in the tire, while that sounds crazy, that's really what makes the tire work in more ways than just not being flat. Okay. You can advance it. So the different parts of the tire, the bead bundles, the part that actually rides on the wheel, the radial ply, which goes from bead to bead. Then you've got the belt package. Some manufacturers, your tier one tires like your Bridgestone, Yokohama, Michelin, Goodyear, Firestone, they all have a more concentrated working belt package in the tire itself. Then your inner liner is actually what holds the air into the tire. Okay.
So Kelly, whenever contractors, TSPs, transportation service providers, whenever they go to purchase tires, it can be kind of overwhelming because you can't tell anything about looking at a tire. Obviously you're depending on tire experts like you and the other sales folks to tell them about these tires. But what is the difference when we look? We know we got rubber, we got metal in these tires and all these kinds of things, but what drives the difference between one type of tire and another, and does it vary by vendor?
It definitely varies by vendor, and it even varies by vendors' different product lines, Tim. So, for example, the rubber concentration that's actually in the tire. Most of your top tier tires have more natural rubber in the tires than, say, other manufacturers or lesser manufacturers or cheaper brands. The belt package, oftentimes, they call it the working ply or the protector ply. The top ply that you see on that tire, that little square, is narrower. So if you get a nail in, say, the outside grooves, that protector ply doesn't protect it as much as it could in some of your other manufacturers. The way the bead is constructed, the rubber, the protector rubber around the bead, so that it's not as susceptible to mounts and dismount damage. So all tires are black, round, and they hold air. That's what I thought when I went to work for Michelin 30 years ago. They're all black round, they hold air. When they're not round or they don't hold air, I need another one. Well, there's a lot more to it, than
Yeah.
that.
And obviously what we're trying to do today is help contractors understand the basic elements of building a solid tire program in their business. I described the tire program I had in my business. It worked great. But along the way, I learned more about tires. So we appreciate you going through this level of detail and trying to help us understand the difference between one vendor and another and one tire type and another, because it's almost impossible to know exactly what to do. And every single contractor you talk to has another idea on what the best tire is. So we appreciate this education today.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to do, Tim, from a standpoint of, differentiating as far as the tread. We'll just go to this one. So the rubber provides the interface between the tire and the road. So, for example, a steer tire has a different tread compound than a drive tire, as well as for a trailer tire. So the trailer tire compounds are normally harder, so they're less acceptable to irregular wear. They come with fewer 30 seconds new, because the more rubber that you have on a tire, the more susceptible it is to irregular wear. When you look at a drive tire, it's going to have more 30 seconds and be of a different compound than the steer, because you want it to be able to handle the torque and the traction taking off. Whereas the steer tires are normally right in the middle, about 18, 19, 30 seconds. And they are a softer compound and oftentimes have more sipes or channels to evacuate the water in wet water traction. So again, the belt plies are different between manufacturers. It helps to maintain a solid contact and then to protect the inner liner from air, from a puncture. The radial body ply is one that goes from bead to bead. So oftentimes you might see a tire that has a nail hole or that ran over something or hit a curb or ran over something in the road, and you'll actually see it bulge on the side of the tire. That particular damage may or may not be repairable, but that's why if you do the proper repair when a nail or when an object intrudes on the tire, cleaning it up, putting a particular patch on for that size injury, it helps hold that working ply that goes from bead to bead. It helps keep it solid so that you don't have that bulge. So the inner liner, basically that's what holds the air into the tire. It's not so much as the rubber in the sidewalls or in the tread area, because I have seen tires that puncture. Like if you run over a nail and it punctures the tread and the liner, that air will cause a separation, because its job is basically just looking for the path of least resistance. And that's why you can get treads peeling or blows out in another area. So the bead bundle, like I said, that's a common, I'll call it a cheat area on some of your lesser product tires. And when I say that, I mean like the Sum Longs and the Chinese tire that really don't have a name, that you don't hear very often. They're oftentimes really inexpensive. And one of the downsides of that is because the construction of the tire, whether it be the protector ply, the bead bundle, the number of working plies that it has in the tire, there's less of a chance that you can retread it. And for your business, if I owned one of your trucks, or if I was responsible for the cost associated with running the tires on your trucks, I would be running a quality steer tire, and more than likely retreads on your drive.
That makes sense. That's exactly what you gave me. So Al, you want to go to the next slide?
And this is just dividing it out in an image standpoint. And just look at the crown where it's got the dots. That's to symbolize the wires, it running back and forth across the casing. But if you see again on this very top one, it's got a narrow protector ply. You really want that protector ply to cover at least the outside grooves. Go ahead. So the reason I did this is because these are two tires, a new and a retread. A lot of the retreads or a lot of the rubber that Bandag produces today looks just like the new tire. So whether it's a 760 or 768, as far as the treads, if it's done correctly, the only area you might be able to tell that it's a retread is on the outside edge, depending upon the buff. So it says, you know, done well, the trained eye can tell the difference. You're having to look on the outside edges. When I say the American Retread Association shows a very small percentage of alligators due to a retread failure. So everybody driving up and down the highway, me included, growing up, when you see the tire on the side of the road that's blown out, it's about an inch thick and it's got wires sticking out all over it. You can say, everyone says that's a retread. They're partially right, but one of the things that I really want to make clear is that when you retread a tire, there's not steel in the rubber that's being pressed back on. So the rubber that's being put onto the tire after it's buffed down has no steel in it, whereas all of those treads on the side of the road have steel in it. So it wasn't the retread that failed. It was actually the casing of the tire. The whole tire failed.
This is a very important point. I have talked with contractors many times about tire practices, and there's some Facebook, I don't know what you call them, groups, and where people get on there and pontificate on tires, right? And most folks, I've heard many people say, I never use retread tires. Retread tires are no good. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this today with Kelly is to help folks understand that retreads are absolutely okay to use on your truck, and it is the most cost-effective way for you to manage tires in your fleet. Big fleets all over the country use retread tires on drive tires. And as Kelly just pointed out, the reason you see tire pieces in the road, commonly referred to as gators or alligators, you automatically assume that that's a retread, but it's not necessarily a retread. What you see laying on the road is poor maintenance practice, primarily low tire pressure. And I'm going to make this point, and I'll send a poll out on this shortly, but I've had this conversation with FedEx maintenance. The number one cause of breakdowns in the FedEx fleet is blown tires. And 95% of the cost factor of blown tires is low tire pressure, not retreads. If you properly maintain a retread tire, which you can purchase for half the cost, it will go just as long and perform just as well as a brand new tire. And it's not a matter of not using retreads. It's a matter of properly maintaining tire pressure in your tires. And if your program is all my drivers check tire pressure on all their pre-trips, I promise you, if we inspected your fleet, half your tires would be low pressure. I'm telling you right now, drivers in nobody's fleet take care of tire pressures. You cannot kick a tire or punch a tire and know whether or not that tire pressure is correct. And we'll talk more about that next week when we talk about how to maintain tires. We're going to focus on that. But one of the things you have to do is manage the cost of tires. And what Kelly just taught you is retreads are perfectly acceptable. Now, what I used to do is I would buy very high quality tires for my drive tires to start with, so that I had a very, very high quality casing. And then sometimes if you mean it, I could get 10 retreads out of that thing. The casings would survive. Southern Tire Mart helped me manage casings in and out. They got numbers on them. You know, we had put barcodes on them. So anyway, there's ways to get this down and get the cost down, and do not be afraid to use retread tires. I guess that's my message, Kelly. Sorry for taking your time, but I really wanted, if we didn't talk about anything else today, I wanted to help people get over these Facebook experts that come on and say, never use retreads, because they just don't know what they're talking about. Back to you, Kelly.
Yeah, no, and that's that's an honest. I mean, when folks say they don't want to use retreads, in my opinion, it's because they haven't been educated, or they did have one that failed. But again, kind of what Tim's saying, and I'll go on the next slide. The air pressure is key. So, when you look at underinflation, the tire that in the first slide is what does the most work is the air in the tire, because it produces low. You've all seen them on your passenger vehicle. And the thing about trucks is because they're so much stiffer, and there's two of them together, it's hard to see that one tire is 15, 20 pounds low. You don't want to overinflate it, because now you're taking out the ability for the tire to flex and move if it runs over something. You're changing the contact patch of what is actually hitting the ground. So that's why, especially in duals, is you want to make sure that the air pressure, the tread depth, and everything is the same, because it is working as a team. The next slide. And this kind of shows you that picture. Why is it such a big issue? Because it does build up heat in that rubber. So every 2 pounds of pressure is a plus 5 degrees Fahrenheit of the heat buildup. The way you look at that, or the way a tire, because they are made out of steel in the sidewall, it's kind of like the coat hanger. You can bend it once, twice, and the tires are all frays of steel, so it's more wire than it is like a coat hanger. But that fatigue, because you're changing the flex point, when it goes at the bottom, you're bending it in, and then it goes back to the top and it stretches out. That working back and forth is what gives the heat, and at the same time will eventually, if run super low, will cause that zipper, or that straight line where all of the steel breaks loose. So when you look at the correctly inflated load for the tire, you can see the contact patch, where it has the largest amount from the middle out, and also from front to back. The patch is bigger. When you look at an overinflated, it kind of pulls the tire up off the ground. That's where you get that very minimal patch in the middle, and it also makes it susceptible to impacts. And then when you look at an underinflated, it actually pushes down on the outside. You get all kinds of crazy irregular wear with an underinflated tire. And most of the time, it will blow out if it's significantly low.
Kelly, what would you say is the typical target air pressure? I know that you guys told me in my tires, I was running 110 pounds on drive tires, I think it was. But anyway, what's your recommendation on steer and drive tires?
Depending upon the load rating, Tim, if you're running a 14 ply or a 16 ply, the manufacturers have different recommendations. I can say from my experience, everybody uses 100. Okay. Everybody uses 100 PSI. That's because it's a nice round number. Michelin sometimes suggests lower. Other manufacturers suggest higher. The key thing is to air it to that PSI when it's cool, when it's parked for a while. Put it to 100, 105, 110. depending upon the manufacturer and the tread design that you're using, and keep it there. Never, ever, ever let air out of a tire because it's hot. If you air it to 110 and run it up and down the road, you're still going to build up heat. So that tire could check it hot. It could be 120. Never let air out of the tire because it's over what your target was when it's hot. Well, the tire pressure varies based on the temperature. Increase from 10 to 20%. Yeah, I've seen that. Especially in like your dump truck tires or garbage truck fleet tires. You know, those really get high because they're so thick and that heavy. The heat tends to build up in the rubber more. I can tell you without any shadow of a doubt, I live in Texas. I'm hoping my wife comes in and after she gets home from work and tells me that her tire light is on, because that means it was cooler during the day. And so I'll go and air them up so that they, are fit to the climate, and the lights don't come on because they are in fact low. They're just lower when it's cooler. The tread depth is imperative as far as tire wear and when you put it off. So oftentimes, the DOT is going to say 430 seconds minimum on the steer, 2 on the drive. When you get 2 duals beside each other, you want to keep them within 430 seconds. And make sure you're not on the wear bar. But the reason you want to make them the same is very similar as to why you don't want to have one tire at 100 psi and one at 85, because that difference in the psi, the tire that has more air in it will be taller or carry more weight. And what will happen is that tire is carrying more weight. The one next to it with fewer 30 seconds or with less air pressure will actually bounce and skip and cause irregular wear. So you really want to have within 430 seconds of each of the tires in a dual application. Go ahead. This is where I'm referring to this. So if you'll look, the tire on the right, we can't measure it. You have to take my word for it, but I can tell by looking at this tire, the tire on the right has more 30 seconds and carries the load. The smaller tire on the left, you can see where it's bouncing as it goes down the road, even though it looks like it's in contact with the road. There's less contact that it's making, and it is actually skipping and bouncing. So that will cause it to wear faster. The reason
before we jump into tire damage here, because this is a really good topic, I meant to ask this question earlier. So we were talking retreads. So Kelly, do me a favor and explain to the audience here a retread management program, how that would look if you're a TSP and you've got 10 or 20 trucks and you're trying to, you can just hold it. Then you can explain to us what a retread management program would look like. Because you got casings and they're going to wear out on different trucks, et cetera, et cetera. So
sure. So one of the Jim asked earlier if there was a tire program or if you had a tire program. The savings are big if you do a casing management, because what I've seen and if folks don't know that casing is worth something because they're pulling it off because it's worn low, because it's down to 4 or 5 30 seconds, that casing, if it's a quality casing, a solid manufacturer, Bridgestone, Goodyear, Michelin, Firestone, Yokohama, General, Continental, they all make good tires. If it is a quality casing, what I would do if it were me, depending upon how many vehicles you have, where you're doing your tire work, you hopefully if you're managing the air pressure and things of that nature, you have fewer tire purchases over the road. But what I would do is maintain my own casings. So if I ran 2 tires on the steer, or new drive tires on the tractor, I'm going to pull those off and retread those for my spec, for what I want in my fleet. Probably a 760 in the Bandag because it's fuel efficient and it's long wearing. Uh, you set up a criteria, as far as years. I'm a firm believer in 6 years. As long as the casing is less than 6 years old, I'm definitely going to cap it once, uh, and possibly twice, depending upon the integrity of that casing and how much the sun, how much all that has impacted that casing. So I would have a set procedure. All of my steer tires get a drive tire retread. All of my virgin drive tires are retreaded and put back on my vehicle. Southern Tire Mart, there's a lot of people that either don't run retreads, or for you guys, because you only have the steer and the drive, you're not responsible for the trailers. You would have enough casings to generate enough to put them on your drive tire. Uh, I don't know of a fleet today, Tim, that does not retread in some capacity. I can tell you, I have the Southwest for FedEx Freight. So Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, New Mexico, Colorado, that whole swath, they by far, by hands down 80%, probably 90% retreaded tires. Even if they're buying a cap and casing, if they're not generating enough of their own casings, they're buying virgin casings to be able to run in their fleet because they know the expense and what they get out of it long term. It's not worth buying a new tire. All of their steer tires are new. Everything else is a retread.
Absolutely.
Unless it's on a brand new vehicle.
What I did with Southern Tire Mart, and this is going to be a little bit of a repeat, but I'm going to slow it down and try to explain a little bit more, because look, there are a lot of guys that get out there and tell other contractors, don't use retread tires. And what we're trying to do in this webinar series here in the fall is to help you understand some levers that are available to you to improve your profitability. And it's very often executing better in certain elements of required programs. So let's say you get a truck or you just buy a new company. What I did is I put new tires on the trucks, but I worked with Southern Tire Mart. I didn't always buy the most expensive tire out there, but what I tried to do is buy tires that I knew had really high quality casings. What is a casing? Well, a casing is, think of it this way. It's the base element of the tire. It's the sidewall and the wires. The rubber part that meets the road is going to wear out, and that can be replaced. But the basic bones of the tire can be continuously reused up to a certain point. And depending on the tire, that depends on the quality of the casing. So I bought tires based on trying to make sure I got high quality casings. And then as we wore tires down, we would work with our local Southern Tire Mart facility, and they would come pick up the casings, and I would get my casings back after they'd been retread. And that is less than half the cost of buying a new tire. But now I'm repurposing that same casing into, and there are trucks that I had that I used the same casing on that truck continuously or in the fleet for the whole time I was in the business. Because if you stay on top of it, you can keep reusing high quality casings. And as Kelly mentioned, you can take your steer tires and you can move those to the drive tires after you recap those, retread those. Okay, so anytime you see a casing that's, or a low tire in or worn out tire in your fleet, don't just throw that tire away, because I guarantee you, if you go to the tire shop, they're going to take those casings and going to make some money off the tires that you throw away. Okay. Because those casings in the big truck world still have value. So understand exactly how you're managing every single tire in your fleet. Baseline every one of them on when you put it on, how long you've had it, how many miles does it run, what's the quality of the casing. Talk to a tire expert in your area. Southern Tire Mart is in most states, not every state, but in most states. And know what to do, what your plan is with all 10 tires on that truck when the time comes due. You're going to change steer tires probably together unless you had a blowout. But then have a program where you keep track of your retreads. Like I said, we would just print barcodes and put them on there, and then Southern Tire Mart would take them, and then they had that barcode. That way they knew they brought me my casings back, right? And then you just manage it like that. It's a huge investment. A new set of tires on a tractor will cost you $8,000. Okay, that's a major investment, but all 10 of those tires can be retreaded and continuously be used until the point in time in which that particular casing begins to degrade. If you curb a tire, you have limited that casing, okay? You cannot retread a tire that's been curbed. You very likely cannot retread a tire that has a side puncture in the casing, depending on how bad it was. But these are the things that you have to stay on top of every day to lower the cost of operating your business. You simply cannot make money in this business if every time you need a tire, you buy a new one. Okay. So what we're trying to do in this series is help you maybe think through some things that you haven't thought of before and understand tires at a deeper level and understand how to manage a program in your company that will help you save thousands of dollars on tires. It's your number 4 expense in your business. We've talked about how to manage capital. We've talked about how to manage labor. We've talked about how to manage fuel. And today we're talking about how to hammer that high cost spike of tires and help you find a way to lower the cost of tires in your business. So appreciate that. If we just start tire damage here, Kelly's going to teach you a lot about the different impacts of damage on your tires.
So one of the things that we oftentimes get what I will call confused with tires is because there's a big difference in, like, say, a passenger tire for a light truck tire on your car or truck, as opposed to the truck tires in the way that they're made. Oftentimes, the stuff that you get in your car is a smaller nail hole, or it's in the shoulder, or depending upon where it's at, they'll just say, no, that's a junk tire. Because of the steel, because of the way that the tires are made, like I told earlier about the bulge, when you have a nail or a screwdriver, or, it's interesting if you were to go to the tire shop, if they do it, oftentimes they'll throw whatever they take out of a tire into a bucket just to see, what kind of collection we get. It's kind of like at the airport, when they pull the different things out of your bag because you can't fly with it, you're like, wow, they tried to get that on a plane. It's the same way. I've seen crescent wrenches. I've seen one of them. We had a gun that was actually the barrel of a gun was in the tire. So getting that repair fixed. When I'm looking at these two, bolts or nails, that tire is absolutely repairable, unless it went in at an angle, or it's been there a while and it's deteriorated the liner of the tire around the hole. But if it's done correctly, they clean that, they remove the injury and clean it up on the inside and make sure all of the steel, the loose steel that nail broke and penetrated when it went in, as long as it's cleaned up, you can put a repair about the size of your thumb in a tire, because the patch that they use is reinforced for a radial tire, and it will hold the construction of the tire together. So it amazes me oftentimes when you'll see a tire or see several tires stacked up next to a building for a smaller fleet. They, oh, those are bad, those are bad. But I got a guy that comes by, once a month. Don't charge me for it. I got a guy that picks them up for free. You're dang right he does. He picks them up for free. He puts a quality patch on them, and he either runs them on his trucks or he sells them to somebody who will.
Absolutely.
So, there's value left in it, even though the tire looks bad. So here are some of the other ones. The fence or the tire there. That may not even. It says it's not repairable. Well, if that in the bottom right-hand corner, if that steel did not cut all the way to that first protector ply steel, that tire is repairable. Because if it's just the rubber on the outside, I can build that back up with the tread rubber, cure it, clean it up to make it run again, and it's for sure drivable on one of your trailers or drive axles. So those are not repairable. The problem
the one on the left particularly is not repairable.
Well, it's not repairable, but it could have been preventable.
Yes,
and the
for
reason
sure.
I say that, if you look at that tire, the steel that's in the casing that goes from bead to bead, what you can tell is that tire has been run flat for a significantly long time, because all of the steel that should span that gap, as well as the working plies in that area, are gone. That's what you see on the side of the road. And that shiny, the triangle area, that's the actual liner of the tire that's still intact.
Wow.
So, and the one on the right, yeah, that's a donation. That was junk. So I use these numbers. Average downtime is 2 hours. So what are you paying the driver, or what is that costing you? Is $400. The flat or destroyed tire, yeah, that may be high, but I'm not doing the mounts and dismounts and all the other stuff that goes on. But even if it was $1,500, or even if it was $1,000, that's still $1,000 that you're going to pay. And the more times that $1,000 or $2,000 happens, simply because folks don't check air pressure and give it a once around.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, this was one of the most frustrating things about being a TSP is we were never, until we put a system in place, an official tire pressure management system on the trucks, and we're going to talk about that kind of program next week. Drivers never, ever kept tires properly inflated. They just didn't care. And I'm sure you're experiencing this in your business. They have no downside to ignoring tire pressure. If they have a blowout, you're going to pay them to sit on the side of the road, and you're going to pay the total cost of that blowout. You're going to miss the revenue on the load. If it's a team run coast to coast and you have that, you may miss out on 4,000 or 5,000 miles that week because of it. This is extremely costly, and it's the number one cause of dispatch problems. In other words, breakdowns in the FedEx fleet. Think about that. The number one cause of breakdowns in the FedEx fleet is 95% preventable. Okay. And so don't be that guy. I was that guy. I can't tell you how many blowouts I had. I was so frustrated. I finally put tire pressure management systems on all my trucks. And then I knew what the tire pressure was remotely, and I would call that driver up. And then I let him know, you have a blowout on my truck. It's going to cost you $2,000, not me. And so this is one of those things that you really have to work on in your company. And Kelly has done an excellent job taking you through all the elements of a tire, what that particular element does, why it's important for you to understand the cost of tires, the cost difference between new tires and retreads, how to manage a retread program in your business, how to recognize tire damage so that someone who's working on your tire doesn't say, oh, that tire's not repairable when it is. And so I know most of you out there are busy and you're like, well, I can't manage my tire program myself. Well, you need to have somebody that's on it for you. And you can outsource that if you can get a reliable vendor in your area. If you're looking at this footprint from Southern Tire Mart, then you can see that they're in a lot of states. But look, they're not everywhere. Nobody is everywhere. Keep in mind that Southern Tire Mart has their own retreads, but you can also, Southern Tire Mart is selling every kind of tire option you can imagine. You know, if you look in the FedEx My Ground Biz website, they're going to say, hey, you can get a discount on Bridgestone. You can get a discount on Michelin. You can get a discount on this or that. All those you can get at Southern Tire Mart. Southern Tire Mart's going to give you my experience was they will give you the best price on tires, which is why FedEx uses Southern Tire Mart. Okay, that's how I got onto them. That's who FedEx uses. So there are special discounts there that you can get. In particular, I learned from Kelly, is if you buy tires and you use your T-Check card, which you should do because the driver can do that, then there's some special discounts available. So I'm not going to try to get into a pricing discussion here. You guys can be able to, we're going to put up Kelly's contact information if you want to ask him about tire prices. But you know, this is the footprint. If you're in an area where there is no Southern Tire Mart, you need to find a partner similar to Southern Tire Mart that can help you in those areas. But the foundational elements that we learned today ought to be able to help you create a tire program that helps you manage to a lower cost point. And the only way to really do that effectively, obviously buying tires at good prices, but you have to run retreads in this business. And so you need to have a program that helps you manage that and helps you manage your casing so you get your casings back, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have to manage tire pressure. Kelly's gone into great depth to show you what does a low tire look like, how is it wearing, what happens when it blows out. You know, one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, and Kelly showed that chart. That chart matches my chart, by the way. It's about $2,000 every time you have a blowout. That's a very common number, and it's the same number whether you're a FedEx contractor or you're running for FedEx Freight, or you're running for any other big trucking company out there. When they have a blowout, it's $2,000. And 95% of blowouts are low tire pressure. So you've got to find a way to eliminate that potential cost factor in your fleet. It will save you tens of thousands of dollars. Think about how many runs you have to do. Because remember, when you have a blowout, that's a maintenance impact. It's essentially taking the profit from about 20 runs. A solo run on average is going to make about $100 a day, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more depending on the run. But let's say $100. That's a good round number, as Kelly said. You got to do 20 runs to pay for one blowout. 20. I mean, damn. So you got to have a program. It's really important to save money in your business to be all over that. And again, we'll talk about tire maintenance next week. So anybody have any questions? I mean, we talked about, one of the questions was, hey, what's the Southern Tire Mart footprint? There it is. We've showed it to you in this chart.
I put the red ones on there as well for the STMP, Tim, because those are clicking off right now about anywhere from 3 to 8 a month. We just opened up 4 last week.
Wow.
So that the Southern Tire Mart at Pilot is what that is. And a lot of folks didn't want to use Pilot truck stops before because of their shops, because of their tires. We joined up 2 years ago now in making sure that to compete against the other truck stops such as Love's, where they're selling their tires, their retreads. But one of the common complaints that I hear from bigger fleets is that Love's takes forever. If I go with a flat tire, it's anywhere from 4 to 8 hours because they're working on an as you arrive basis, first come, first serve. If you go to a Pilot, our goal is to get you in and out in 3 hours. So if you go in with a tire and there's other vehicles getting PMs or oil changes or brake jobs or whatever, they have a truck there where they will fix that tire out of line of everybody else, but to get that truck back up and going on the road as fast as possible.
Yeah, we got a question here. Is there Southern Tire Mart in Atlanta? Yep, there sure is. And in fact, it's not
Actually,
too
3 in
far from
Atlanta.
303. So if you're running in 303, I think, Jarrell, you're down at 303. Yeah, they got Southern Tire Mart down there. So here's a good one. So, Kelly, if there is a tire that is non-repairable, do we have to just replace that tire, or do you have to replace tires in pairs?
Good question. It's going to be on the 30 seconds. So depending upon how often you see your trucks, or if all the trucks are in one spot, if it were me, depending upon where that tire is in its life, let's say it's a drive tire and it started out with 24, 30 seconds. If I have now punctured that tire at 16, 30 seconds, and the other one's not right beside it is 16, 30 seconds, if I'm putting a new one on at 24, it's going to be outside of that 4 30-second difference. So yes, I would replace both, but I would keep that one at 16, 30 seconds in case that happens again on another vehicle. You might even be able to, some locations have used tires. So if, because of that situation, they replace both of them, I wouldn't make it a habit to buy used tires, but I would keep yours in order to match it up. So
Yeah, that's good counsel there. And the reason he's saying that about the 30 seconds is to, if we go back, if we think back through all the slides that we saw today, if you put a brand new tire on there, then you're going to potentially have a big mismatch between those two tires in terms of tread depth, and then you're going to have a different wear pattern. So keep that in mind, but don't throw away a good tire, man. Always keep those tires, and maybe just fix the flat or put the new tire on for the situation that you're on the roadside. But when you get that truck back to the shop or back to your location, then you can take a look at those tires and match up tread depth. Is one of the key things you can do in your fleet, is try to keep tread depth essentially the same on all the drive tires. They'll wear a lot better. You'll get much longer tire life out of them if you do that, which means you have to actually have somebody that's measuring tread depth, not just looking at it and eyeballing it. I've been doing this 25 years. I know what I'm looking at. And if he's not pulling out his tread wear measurement tool that we saw in one of these slides earlier, then he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got to measure those, and you want to try to keep them. Even. We did a chart in my company where we measured tread depth on all the tires, and we found that I went to the extreme of moving tires from one truck to another so that they all matched tread depth. And when we did that, our tire life was dramatically improved. And it's a pain in the neck to do that. And it's not easy to do. All right. I mean, you got to air those, you got to lift the truck up, you got to take the tires off, move it to another one. It's invariably always the inner on the drive line. So you got to take both tires off. But nonetheless, if you have a proactive tire program like that, and you're constantly managing tread depth and pressure, you will lower the cost of ownership of these tractors. These are levers. I'll call them levers you can pull. If you pull this lever and you make this work, you make this effort, you will absolutely put more money on the bottom line because of the savings on tires. You absolutely will. Now, one of the things that folks don't think about much whenever they talk about blowouts. Now, we all have safety scores at FedEx, right? And sometimes you feel like this is just beyond my control. This driver did this or this driver did that. We're coaching them all the time. But what if that driver is also not, or you're not, managing tire pressure and tread depth on all your tires? And then that tire blows out. If the tire blows out and the gator doesn't go flying down the road, then that's one situation. You might get out of it with no safety incident, just a service failure. But what if that gator comes off and hits the car behind you? Okay, you're not going too far. You're going to the side of the road with a flat tire. It's pretty easy to figure out whose tire just hit that car. Well, now you just bought a whole nother level of problem. A tire blowout just became a preventable accident and a future lawsuit. You can absolutely count on it. Okay, so there are perils that you can manage in your business. Okay, accidents happen. There's no way to 100% prevent accidents. certainly we've all learned by managing certain driver behaviors, you can reduce the incident rate of accidents. Well, you can eliminate the incident rate of blown tires due to tire pressure in your fleet by having good quality tires that match the tread depth and that you manage tire pressure in those tires. And it doesn't matter if that tire is new or retread. It will, you do not, as Kelly showed you do not have a higher failure rate in a retread tire if you keep it properly aired up. Okay. So there's a question here, Kelly. Do we have any recommendations for tire programs in the areas of the country like the Northeast or others where there's not a Southern Tire footprint? Is there another company I know you don't like recommending the competition, but if it's in areas where you don't operate, is there a chain that you recommend?
Yeah, as far as there's many. I mean, McCarthy Tires in the Northeast. Pumps is kind of in the Midwest and out to the West. So, I mean, a good quality tire program, a good dealer, regardless of what product line they sell, will do this. But at the same time, I will say quicker than anybody that they're going to do what they can to make as much money in as little time as possible. And that's why I am a proponent of being involved and having a program. If you have a flat on the side of the road, who do you call? And is it a network kind of like Southern Tire Mart has? 877 STM Tires is our breakdown number. And if we don't have a store close, we have someone that we partner with that does that work for us across the country. So, McCarthy, like I said, McCarthy's kind of in the Northeast. The STMPs, they're more of an individual, like breakdown, but some of you may be, if you've got 4, 5, 8 trucks, they might not all come to the same spot every night or every day. So I'm wanting to obviously offer our services, but at the same time, a little bit of nugget here and there that says, hey, if I did that, it will save money. The air pressure is key.
Yeah, if you look in the chat or the question and answer there, I put Kelly's contact email. He's a fountain of knowledge. He'll help you any way he can. So again, Southern Tire Mart is on this call today because they're a FedEx partner and they have FedEx as a customer. So that was enough for me to use them. And that 877 STM Tire, my team's called it 1 million times over the course of time. And as I mentioned, put some thought into this. Sit down with the tire guy that you're going to work with, the company you're going to work with, and come up with a plan that helps you proactively manage the cost of tires in your fleet. Like I mentioned, I asked and they did manage a virtual inventory for me at STM. I bought some tires in advance, and anywhere I used tires, they just debited my virtual inventory. So it worked out great. That way I didn't have to stock tires or buy tires in 10 different locations. I just used Southern Tire Mart, and I had one allocation that essentially kept it in the cloud, and they would virtually administer that program for me. Unfortunately, all the guys at that call center were on a first name basis with my team, but we had a lot of trucks running up and down the road in the Southern Tire Mart footprint. Go ahead, Kelly. I'm sorry.
One of the things that I will say is that while I am talking about the Bridgestone, Firestone, Yokohama, when I say a quality tire, quality casing, that is obviously maybe not so obvious, but highly recommended to buy that. But one of the things what I will say is Southern Tire Mart is the world's largest truck tire dealer and retreader. We retread probably close to 10,000 tires a day throughout our 18 plants. So we're built on that. But we also, while we do not have Goodyear, Michelin, or BFG tires. We have the General Continental, Bridgestone, Firestone, Yokohama. We have all of your major lines, as well as your lesser expensive tires. And we buy those tires less than what most people do. So if someone wants to maintain buying a Chinese tire, excuse me, we sell those every day as well.
Yeah.
So just want to let you, we're not limited to what we can say. But one of the things that I will say is education wise, all of our stores, while they provide the pricing, the special pricing that FedEx contractors get, they don't always click to the service tech or the person that's getting the call to use that program. There is a FedEx contractors program in all of our stores, and it's real easy to remember. If you go in there, the name on the account is contract. And I have all of the pricing loaded for the Yokohama, the Bridgestone, Firestone, and General Continental prices are in that system. So you would know exactly that you're getting that discounted rate.
Awesome. Well, this has been extremely informative. I learned a couple things myself on tires. Tomorrow we will release the video and we will include the presentation. And that will allow you to go back through this presentation. You don't have to memorize it. You're going to get the ability to go back through it if you want to. And you can always reach out to me if you've got questions. You can always reach out to Kelly if you have tire questions. But it's extremely important that you have a very, very focused program on how to lower the cost of tires in your fleet. Next week, we're going to continue this tire conversation. You've heard Kelly make the case for how important tire pressure is. Well, next week, we're going to talk about the actual data from fleets across the country that comes from running tire pressure management systems. And what's the benefit of that? We're going to have some experts from PSI International on the call next week. Why did we select PSI International? Well, we talked about Southern Tire Mart being the FedEx partner for tires. PSI International is the one that produces that automatic tire inflation system that's on all FedEx trailers. So they too are a major FedEx partner. So next week, we'll bring another major FedEx partner to the table, and we're going to talk about how to manage tire pressure in your fleet. Then upcoming after that, we got a couple more webinars coming. Remember, if you have an idea on what you would like to see us talk about on one of these webinars, you can just send it to me at tim.goff@mygroundforce.com and as your idea, and we'll see if we can pull together a webinar on it. We're giving the 8th webinar in this series. We're using the audience to tell us what they want to hear. Believe me, if you don't tell me what you want to hear, I got plenty of subjects to cover. So today's winner, by the way, as I mentioned, Southern Tire Mart and Kelly are very kind to offer a $750 discount coupon. Today's winner, that is Jarrell Jackson. So we'll reach out to you, Jarrell, and we will get that. I'll get that from Kelly and get it over to you. And you can go to the local Southern Tire Mart in your area and take advantage of that $750 discount. We appreciate Southern Tire Mart doing that today. We appreciate Kelly's partnership. I've known Kelly a long time. I know his guys in Birmingham extremely well. And Kelly's been at the Line Haul Summit. He's a very, very well-known guy in this space. And Kelly, we appreciate your time and coming in, even though you're in a degraded condition today. We appreciate that.
Very good.
All right,
Thanks again for your time.
We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys attending the webinar series. We'll continue again next week at 2 p.m. Thanks again for attending today. Until then, you guys take care. It's Tim Goff. See you later.